DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The Michigan Wolverines are the NCAA men's basketball champions. They beat UConn 69-63. And PK, I know the sport's become all about three-point shooting, but 2 for 15 from three. That was shockingly bad.
Yeah.
And I know there's obviously the pressure of the championship game. And there's the quality of the other team's defense. And there's the fact that they're playing in an NFL stadium. They're in a dome and the shooting background and the sightlines and perspective and all that stuff. But they didn't have a problem in the semifinal. There was a lot of pressure there. There was a team with even better defensive numbers over the course of the season. There were certainly some nerves, and they were in the same stadium. So I can't exactly explain it. But nonetheless, there it was.
I think it's just shooting.
The nature of a one-off playoff.
I think it's the nature of shooting.
It comes and goes.
Yeah, and you want it to be there more often than not, and usually, for the better shooters it is, but Steph Curry can go 3 for 17 from three, and we're just going to look, that was a bad game. I mean, it's like having a 4 strikeout game in baseball, and the next game, the next week, you go on a little bit of a tear. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and then you factor in the circumstances. You've gotten this far, and it is so emotional to get to that level, and everybody is just laying it out on the line, whatever they got. I mean, they let that couple of jump balls. You saw jump balls. I was thinking, why we're seeing like an inordinate amount of tie-ups. It's because nobody wants to give an inch. And they're going to give you everything they have. And it's impossible to play at that pace, at that level for 30-some games. But in this game, whatever you got, you're going to do it. And that leads to just everything is just heightened. So I'm not really surprised. I think it's just the circumstance. And they can go out and play their next game, whenever that might be, and light it up. And away you go. And unfortunately for UConn, they couldn't hit enough baskets. I mean, I thought maybe they had a second there. They got a turnover. They got a couple of missed free throws, but then they come down and they just couldn't hit it. And then they hit one that was a bank shot from three, which, normally you don't do. You don't bank in three-pointers. So that was something. And it's the nature of the game. And UConn still has a phenomenal program. And Michigan, and it's not like they came out of nowhere, but they did suck a couple years ago. And I think they only had like 8 wins. And then this kid comes in there, and they get these transfers, and away you go. And UConn is steady, and Hurley is a phenomenal coach. He's an interesting character. Love watching his facial expressions during the game. That's entertainment unto itself.
More entertaining, Rich Rod or Hurley?
I'd say Hurley, because Rich Rod, I literally worried for his health and his ability to stay alive.
Thought he'd keel over, huh?
Yes, because he looked like he was in explosion mode if things would go sour. And he's trying to build something, it was particularly at Arizona, where it hadn't been, they've had some good teams occasionally, but the consistency of winning hasn't been there. And he's trying. They got miserable fan base. The stadium is usually at best half full for most of the games. And so he's trying really hard. And it's just, it's okay. He had that one good season. I think they got the Fiesta Bowl and Boise beat him, but which is the definition of U of A football. And then it goes away, and then it comes back, and then they change coaches, and away we go. Hurley, that's just who he is, a very, very demonstrative, emotional person that you can see out there. And he's this little undersized dude, and if you are one of his guys, you swear by him. If you're not, you swear at him. And I like what I did there.
I was waiting for the punchline. Well, they'll put up with whatever. They're in the title game for the third time in 4 years, and they've won 2 of them. So it's been an awesome run. If they'd won that game somehow, some way at the end, it never seemed like they were going to, and yet they weren't completely out of it, so you couldn't know for sure they weren't going to do something crazy and pull it off. 3 titles in 4 years. I mean, Krzyzewski didn't do that at Duke. You know, North Carolina hasn't done that. And you got to go back to UCLA probably. I mean, that would have been unreal if they pulled that. And UConn is a blue blood now.
They are.
They've had
Absolutely.
3 coaches combined to win 6 championships, and they've got other Final Fours and title game appearances mixed in there, and Sweet 16s and Elite Eights and all that stuff. So, and they've also proven that you can break it and rebuild it because they've had really bad years in this, 30 years that they've been awesome. But they get down, but they don't stay down. They bounce right back, which you pointed out that's what Michigan just did. They get down, but they bounce right back.
And they're going to put that on my tombstone. He got down, but he bounced right back.
Okay. The lesson for the locals is defense. Our local teams, and we can go crazy over the NBA prospects, and that's fun, and over shooting and scoring, and that's fun, but there's a cliche out there, defense wins championships. Michigan, number 1 defensive rating, champion. Seattle Seahawks gave up the fewest points in the NFL in a regular season, champion. Indiana, number 2 in points allowed, champion. Now, I'll bet over time there'll be some, Team 8 or Team 10 or whatever, but BYU wasn't in the top 50. Utah wasn't in the top 200. They got to get better than that. They just it's got to get better, PK. And there got to be a lesson in watching these teams play and who went to the Final Four and who went to the Elite Eight. And it was elite defensive teams. And I know in any one game shooting is fickle and sometimes teams are hot, and that's true. And that's why we don't have undefeated NCAA champions. But on the whole, you got to do everything you can on every possession to minimize the other guy's chances to score. Now, he may stick a shot in your face. It happens. But, man, if you're not a top 50 defensive team, can we really talk seriously about Final Four and Elite Eight? Seems like
probably
a big
not.
ask.
I mean, we have on Ken Pomeroy a lot, and he's got all that stuff that bears it out. And we talked to him last week, and he said he's going with Michigan.
Yeah. And he won. He was right.
Right. I think that is most definitely something that BYU needs to figure out. I think that Kevin Young coming from the NBA, where so many guys are so prolific offensively, it's almost like on the verge of unstoppable. They stop themselves. You don't stop them. And it's easier, I think, to get at that level to get big time shot makers, and so he sees that. I think he's going to have to understand what really wins. And the problem with BYU this past season, from the defensive perspective, is they allowed teams to barely even work up a sweat in scoring.
Yeah.
It was simply too easy for them, and they're not expending energy. It was not grinded out. Possessions weren't. BYU rarely made the other team grind out possessions, and they score so easily. Then they go into that game with all sorts of confidence, and confidence in shooting is. And I don't know if it's half the battle, as the cliche is, but it's way up there, and they've got to figure out a way to get guys to dig in. And then he's probably looking at, when they had their great runs, Jimmer was lighting it up. They weren't exactly a defensive juggernaut then, but he needs to get, I think what they need to get some guys who are willing to lay it out on the line on the perimeter, and then they need to get some better rim protection and better inside scoring. I think those are tried and true tested ways to win, because if you can have that, and if the 3-point shots are falling, then great. But if they're not, then you still have other ways. And the extent of BYU's easy baskets, they weren't really that easy, but they were either Wright or DeBonsa driving to the rim through what it seemed like 10 guys. And Wright was quick enough, and then he would throw up an off-balance shot. And DeBonsa possesses an enormous amount of athletic ability, so he found ways. But even those guys, they had to traverse their way to get to the basket. It wasn't like it was easy. There was never any throw the ball inside and then have an inside-out offense. They haven't had that. They certainly had nothing of that this past season, and I think they got to go to that. You look at Michigan with that big dude, the big Spaniard, Mara. I mean, he got you some easy buckets, right? And because he's so tall, and stunning to me that he sat the bench with another team for the last couple of years when he looked like this kid's a player. I mean, he's kind of tall and geeky, he'll look awkward at times, but not that much, man. He looked like he was a nice player for them and made a significant difference in them being able to win the title.
As much as we can complain about the transfers and NIL, they found guys at UCLA and North Carolina who were not stars.
No.
They weren't cherry-picking the best players of other teams. They were seeing something nobody else saw, diamond in the rough kind of stuff. And it worked for them, and they got a title.
Yeah. And I think that's Kevin Young and his staff. It's hard to criticize because if there's a 5-star out there and he's showing interest, well, yeah, you go after him. But they got to find some grinders, too, to be able to play at a high level. I know he's caught up in the stars, and that's great, and lottery picks, but you gotta have winning teams, and they got undercut by injuries. I don't want to discount that, but still, even with if the injuries never happen, were they going to be a top 50 defensive team?
No, probably not. And even if they did, I think they finished 59th actually. Even if they did get top 50, but are you top 40 or are you top 30? You know, and when you look at who was in the Elite Eight and the Sweet 16, it was the best defensive teams. And I get he's coming from the NBA and it's different, but the best defensive teams in the NBA this year, the top 4 are Oklahoma City and San Antonio and Detroit and Boston. I don't think it's that order right now, but they are the top 4, and those teams are first and second place in the West and in the East right now. And the Jazz are 29th defensively, and the Wizards are 30th. It's we know what the standings are, and we know why. And defense wins championships is a cliche, but you've got to be at least above average. Maybe you have to be great, but you got to at least be above average. So how do you turn 59 into, a top 40 or top 30 team, a top 20 team, and give yourself a chance to win a couple of games?
Yeah, I think that you have to demand it. Yeah, it has to be accountable to where.
But it's also the talent.
You
I think
screw
the
up,
rim,
you're going to
the
get
rim
benched.
protection. That BYU team, positionally, did they have guys who are big for their positions? DeBonsa, yes. But after that, no. I mean, Keba Kate, he could be undersized some nights.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I was probably against Arizona. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely, he was. And the Big 12 is such that it's a conference that can recruit size. The Big West can't, but the Big 12 can. Right? Mm-hmm. You can put big dudes there. So yeah, I think he's got to find guys that are willing to play a specific role, and maybe if they don't have some big star ranking, so what? You got to be able to see that. And I think it's a development for him. I believe he was in charge of offense, or his specialty in the NBA was enough from the offensive perspective. I know they talked about his inbounds plays and all that type of stuff. So I have a belief that he will grow into and get a roster that he needs to be able to compete at a high level. And he did get to the Sweet 16 in the first year, which was impressive.
Yeah, and they did have the injuries this year.
Yeah.
But I just think that the defense is going to have to get better. And, I mean, there are a couple ways to go here. If this season showed anything, it's that there are many paths. Whatever you choose to do it very, very well. And be good at everything. Because as much as I'm sitting here talking about defense, Michigan and Arizona both had top 5 offenses also. They were elite at both ends of the
I think
floor.
you need both.
Right.
I don't think just being deficient in one area is good enough. You need to be good in both. You need to have a well-rounded team and a well-rounded roster of guys. If I've got 2 prolific offensive players, then I need to make sure I get some guys who are willing to slap the floor and play some defense.
Arizona and Duke go for the multiple freshmen who are NBA prospects. Now, the risk you run is as the games get bigger, they don't have tournament experience. They're literally freshmen. They can't. And they're playing the biggest games of their lives. So if they have some nerves and have a late turnover, can you really be surprised? I mean, sit here and say, oh, he's such a good player. Why did Boozer throw that pass? And he's a freshman. Both of them were freshmen. And then they
but the coach is telling him to throw it.
Yes.
And he's not a freshman.
That split screen of the coach waving, or Shire waving, that was very telling. But I do think that when you look at the whole question about why Duke has blown these big leads and all that, it's kind of like, well, the last two teams, they've been talented, wildly talented, but they've been running a bunch of freshmen out there. Arizona maybe had a little more of a mix. Michigan went down a totally different path. So do you want to build it with freshmen? Do you want to build it with transfers?
You want to build it with the best players.
Okay, well, I think Duke a year ago with Cooper Flagg built it with the best players.
Okay, but it's a one-game basis, and so they lost.
They lost in the Final Four. It's still a great season.
Yeah.
They're in the Final Four. And this year, as bitter as that game was, they still had a great season.
Right.
They won the ACC, and they went to the Elite Eight. They didn't suck.
Duke's recruiting isn't the problem.
No. So, but I think the question for a school like BYU is, can you get enough of those guys when you know the Dukes and the Arizonas of the world are probably going to get theirs? How many more lottery picks are available at that point? Rutgers 1 year gets 2, but then they're just back to being Rutgers. What's sustainable? And that's why I think the point you make about the gritty guys, the program guys, maybe bigger, more talented program guys, but they need to have some of those guys because it just doesn't seem likely that BYU is going to bring in 3 or 4 lottery picks and follow it up the next year with 3 or 4 lottery picks. Now, maybe they are. Maybe, the whole we're not going to get outbid thing, and they learned from the first 2 years, and they're having these discussions, and they're picking one of these paths, and maybe they decide they want to go the Duke-Arizona route.
Yeah, I think to an extent you can go there, but I don't think you can put all your eggs in that basket, as they say, because you need to get some other dudes. And, he's gotten some local kids, which probably are going to be LDS, and they're going to have an affinity for BYU, so they're willing to stay a little bit if they're not getting 30 minutes a game as a freshman or what have you. And I think this is it's a self-discovery, because I think some of these kids that they had on this team, DeBonsa would be gone to the NBA, but the other hire, and particularly one other player, is they're gonna look for the money. And so if you get in bed with those types of players, to use that expression, you can't be surprised if they leave for more money. And BYU's got to figure out what's the best way, because you don't want to get in that complete and total, it's nothing but a transaction. And not at a place like BYU, which has more to offer. I mean, they keep telling us they have more to offer. And, Lee Kamard talking about the Sunday thing there made buzz, and the Gib was on a national show, I guess maybe even this morning. I don't know. Yak and I were talking about it in the break about that. And so those types of kids, you got to go get them. And I think he'll figure that out. Those kids have to be available. And maybe if you look at it, well, okay, 1 year of player X versus 3 or 4 years of player Z, that player X may be better in that 1 year, but then if he takes off and goes to another school, I'd be better off with the other guy who may not be as highly acclaimed, but will be in my system, and I'll develop him. So by the time he's a junior, man, he is a critical role player that is helping us win games in the manner that Dave Rose did.
And that's why I think that phrase you used about the self-discovery. They have to figure out what is the recipe at BYU in this new world order.
Right.
In the Big 12
right.
is different than being in the Mountain West and the WAC. And the NIL era is different. And they just got to figure out what it is that works.
Agreed. And I'm willing to give them a little bit of a time because in both seasons, they went to the NCAA tournament.
Right. And we know that it took, Ron McBride coached at Utah twice as an assistant to try to figure out what worked. And he got a recipe. And then the people who've copied it, whether it was Kyle Whittingham later or Gary Anderson going to Utah State, I'm going to go on down the line through the coaching tree, the recipe works once you figure it out. But with the change in conference and the change in rules, what is the recipe? And what's the goal? You know, are you trying to be a Sweet 16 team? You're trying to be a Final Four team? Obviously, the margin for error gets less and less the deeper you get.
Well, I think they're going to try to
tournament.
be Final Four. I remember Dave Rose's opening press conference. He spoke of that. I mean, that needs to be the goal. The goal can't be the Sweet 16. No, that's a check mark along the way.
DJ and PK, we're taking a break. When we come back, everything you missed in this show. Next, stay with us.
Just a bunch of guys sitting around and talking sports. This is Scotty G and Friends.
Tony Jones from The Athletic. When you get blown out at home by a team that lost 16 in a row, I applaud that lack of effort. That was impressive by the Jazz.
The length that the Jazz are going to pull this off and to make sure that they keep that pick. I got to say, this is the best front office in the league at this point. You know, I'm all in. Because they're going to keep their pick, all right? They're going to get a top 5 pick. Listen, you ready for me to get wild on here?
Let's
go.
go.
I'm going to get
Let's do
wild
it.
on this show.
Let's do it.
If the Utah Jazz get A.J. DeVance, they're winning an NBA championship within 3 years.
Lloyd, you rolling on that? Lloyd's got
Lloyd, you got that?
it. Wow.
Catch Scotty G and Friends weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Slacker Radio Headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 801-210-6800 or visit the website at TrajanWealth.com. Yuck, you're giving away so much stuff today. You just feel like Santa Claus in April?
Sure. I'm kind of overloaded at this point, but yeah, we're having fun.
Would you like to give away Jazz tickets right now, or would you like to qualify someone for the Masters? We'll do one now, we'll do one later.
Let's do Jazz tickets now. We'll do the Masters here in a bit.
All right, it's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday. Caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. Wins a pair of tickets to watch the Utah Jazz and the Memphis Grizzlies Friday night at the Delta Center. Free tickets for a date night, Friday night at the Delta Center. Call right now, 801-575-ZONE. PK, we just heard the update. Was that like your favorite update? The updates are coming to a close here as the season ends. Was that your favorite update of the year? The Swiss Army knife, John Conchar, a.k.a. the Lion. Sometimes you have a lineup. Hey, this is exactly what we've been talking about. Who's going to score for the Jazz next year? Who's the offense going to run through? Who's 20 points a game? How many guys can be 20 points a game? Is anybody going to be 25? Are they going to be sharing the ball and rotating in and out and all that kind of stuff? But not everyone can shoot every time down. Someone's got to be defending, rebounding, passing, spacing the floor. That's the Lion, PK. John Conchar, a.k.a. the Swiss Army knife. I hear a coach who might want him on the roster next year.
Okay, but he might want him on the roster, sure. But you think the Lion King is going to get substantial minutes?
No.
Then what difference does it make?
Roll guy gets 15, 20 minutes. You can still feel good when he comes in and makes a nice
15
play.
and 20 minutes is substantial minutes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking more like starting minutes.
Oh, no,
25 and all that.
not at all. No, I'm talking
Do I think he
15,
can make
20 minutes. If you get at least 12 minutes, which is one quarter, you have an opportunity.
So the 12 minutes, when I hear 12 minutes, I start thinking 8th or 9th guy in the rotation. Do I think he could do that? Yeah, I think there's a possibility because they're going to build around the key players, and then it's not just where were you drafted, how much are we paying you. Like, they have to win. Who makes winning plays? Is there time for you? Joe Ingles made winning plays. They could not keep him on the bench. He made winning plays. Now, a lot of that time, he was not 25, 30 minutes a game. Eventually, his role grew into that, and maybe that's what we remember because that's when we saw him play the most. But there was a time he was playing 10, 12, 15 minutes a game.
Yeah.
You don't think he can do that?
I don't know. I hope not. And that's nothing against the Lion King.
Well,
That just means the team is pretty good.
Right. I get where you're going with that. I won't guarantee you that he's in the top 8 or 9, but I'm not ruling it out. Here's the other thing, too. The top 8 or 9 on any given night, because I just don't think there are going to be that many guys who play more than 70 games. So if you've got 9 players and everybody's missing at least 12 games, you're always missing somebody. You could be the 10th guy in the team, but as long as you can show up, you're probably 8 or 9 and in the rotation because there's always going to be somebody missing.
Yeah, but
They're
they
not gonna
got
be
all these
forcing.
draft picks, and they're not playing because they're draft picks. They're playing because they have developed. I can't see him getting minutes ahead of just Sensabaugh, Cody Williams, Flipper.
Oh, I could see him getting minutes ahead of Sensabaugh.
No way.
They've got to get
No
better
way.
defensively. Sensabaugh, man, you
You
always
just
say
said
you
you
don't
couldn't
know
see him
anything
playing
about
against
basketball.
Sensabaugh. Now you're talking about what were we talking about, Sensabaugh or Williams?
No. Could I see I think that Cody and Conchar can bring the defensive, you were just talking about defensive slap the floor. There's not going to be like 5 shooters out there at all times, and like some people are going to be out there because they can defend and rebound and they can pass and move the ball. Now, Cody's got to score it well enough that they don't just cheat off him and, the other guys are playing 4-on-5 on offense. So and there's questions for these young guys to answer. I'm not guaranteeing that any of them are in the top 8 or 9 next year. I can see them on the roster, but it's like we talked about with Locke. You're a guy 11, 12, 13. There'll be times you're useful, but there'll also be a lot of nights where you're just sitting over there not playing.
Sure, but I don't think that Lion King is going to be ahead of these guys. I think they like Harkless better.
Interesting. What do you think about Hinson?
I don't know what to think. I mean,
I'm with you. The basketball is so fraudulent at this time of year.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of this is real. That's why we brought that up with Locke, and he brought him up. Like, there might be something there.
he's got good size. He's got an NBA body. I would love to see it. Love to see a kid like that break through. Those types of kids, I'm attracted to them. I'm drawn to them. Who had nothing handed to him and had to just, not that Lion King has had everything handed to him, because I'm not saying that, but you brought up Hinson, so that's who we're talking about, Hinson right now. And I don't know what to think, honestly. I've watched, I've been impressed. He's impressive. Just standing there, right? And I've watched him, and it looks like something there. But then you got a kid like Mihalik. I get what Will Hardy's talking about with him, because he sits for weeks at a time, gets in, and does good stuff. I know. And so where does he fit in? They all can't play. And then you're going to have somebody who's got to be the backup center. He's got to be in the top 8, 9, 10. Because if it's Kessler and they re-sign, if the Nurkic comes back, somebody's got to take those minutes. So that's a position you're getting bumped out at.
I do wonder if they'll play a centerless lineup or if they'll call Jackson the center. There are nights where the other team, let's say, is the other team going small? Can you, quote-unquote, go small and have
you can for a time, but if you've got an elite rim defender, man, you want him in there.
Right. But Kessler would be playing his 30, 35 minutes, whatever it turns out to be. But are there 10 minutes a game?
I just
wonder how big that backup role is.
They can be, yeah.
And it'll depend on some nights. So some nights you absolutely have to have a
But
a big guy
I'm
out
talking about the playoffs. I'm not talking about the regular season. I don't care what happens in January.
Okay, but I think in the playoffs, then it depends on the other team and their ability. When people were trying to figure out how to beat the Warriors, some teams that go big, some teams that go small. We'd see a playoff series where Bogut, played at the U, so we kept our eye on him. We'd see a playoff series where he played every night, and then we see a playoff series where he didn't get the game.
Because they had the greatest shooting team in the NBA history, so they can do whatever the hell they wanted.
Well, it was also what the other team was doing to them and how they had to match up.
Was Steph and Clay? No, they were fine.
Yeah.
Their offense was
you were
fine.
the Warriors when you had Durant.
Draymond? Yeah.
You're not worried about what the other team is doing.
Well, Draymond was the one. They could have Draymond chase around the big guy.
And he was out there, and including him in the mix. Absolutely. Yeah.
But big guys sometimes don't have a matchup and sit.
Sure. But, then you'd have to sit Jackson because he's a big man, and you'd have to sit Markkanen because he's a big man.
Those are the big guys who play. It's like you said, they got a ball. They're making the $50 million.
Right, so you do what you do
guys.
best. And let the other team adjust to you.
We also had Mike Folta on during today's show talking about the Edmonton Oilers and the Utah Mammoth tonight. 6 games to go, potential playoff matchup. If Edmonton wins the Pacific Division, there's 3 teams separated by 1 point, so that's got to shake out here for the next 2 weeks. But everybody's upbeat right now. The goals are flowing. They're scoring on the power play. Times are good, but they've been on the road too, and they are much better on the road lately than at home.
I think that's just circumstantial.
Well, then get it going tonight.
Well, I mean, they're playing a really good team. I'm not going along the lines of a statement game, because if you lose, then what's the statement? You can never beat them.
Right? You're doomed.
Yeah.
We also went to Augusta. We'll be doing that all week long here with Bob Casper and Brian Taylor there. BT joined us today. There's a bunch of young guys, PK. The leading money winner on the PGA Tour, Jacob Bridgman, 26 years old, doesn't have all that Augusta experience. Morikawa, 29, he's actually been playing for so long. He does have Augusta experience, but he's got a bad back, and he's going to try to play through that. You trust Scheffler at this point?
Of course.
He's won. He's up and down, but he hasn't been dominant.
It's impossible to be dominant in this game. It's happened so few times. I mean, he has been dominant in his own way. Maybe you're going this year, but I mean, these guys are the leading money. Because if I play in 15 tournaments and you play in 5, I got a shot to have more money. That doesn't concern me. It's who puts together the best 4 rounds. I mean, it's the 10-year anniversary of Danny Willett. Who the crap remembers Danny Willett?
Danny Willett, right? Yeah.
And I remember that he was sitting on a couch, and there was somebody out there who bogeyed, and that meant he won, and he was just giddy. And good for him. And he had his moment, but that's it. And I talked to Nick Faldo, and we were talking about moments, and he said, yeah, I've had my moment. I said, no, Mr. Faldo. You've had an hour's worth of moments.
You have more than a moment.
Yeah, I said, yeah, you've had plenty. He kind of was self-deprecating because I was making a point about these guys having their moments. And then I said somebody like you, and he jumped in, and he kind of cut me off. I said, I was going to say you're an old-timer, and he was, when I said having a moment, he thought I was comparing to these guys. Oh, yeah, I've had a moment. That's not what I meant. I meant guys who have moments versus the great ones. That's where I was going. And that's the crazy thing about golf is that it's a 4-day race. And who knows, man, if Willett can do it. And there's been other guys that have done it. Mike Weir did it. He has 1 major. And what a major to have, man. Oh, yeah. If I'm picking one, this is the one I'm picking. I know others may say the U.S. or what have you, and then the foreign guys go for the one on their side of the world. Right. But for me, if I'm picking one, this is it. Because it truly is, as your hero Jim Nantz says, a tradition unlike any other. Because everything else moves around. This stays. There's so many things involved in it that if I pick one that I could have, it would be this one. It would be, I would take this one even over this summer winning the men's league senior division at River Oaks.
It's a close call. But, yeah, I think the whole chasing ghost thing at Augusta really does give this tournament something special. You just can't get, with St. Andrews hosting, roughly once a decade, right, or Pebble Beach or whatever. It's the fact that, every hole, I'm into it, but there are people who are way into it, way more than me, right? But I'm into it. I mean, I look at 16, and it doesn't matter where someone's on the green. I look over there to the right and kind of down there, that's where Tiger was when he chipped it, right?
Oh, yeah,
and you look at 18, and it's well, that's where Phil was when he jumped and got maybe 2, 3, possibly even 4 inches off the ground.
I saw daylight.
I was so excited.
I had to squint, but I saw it.
Yeah, right? And I think you just go around, at 13, you're like, there's the creek. I've seen a million guys make birdie here.
Yeah, they're up a creek is what you're saying.
They've been up that creek without a wedge.
Or a paddle.
Either one. What do you think about Rory after all that emotion and all that? He's got the career slam. He finally got Augusta. That was a heck of a story. Can he come back, or is it just take a victory lap around this?
No, I think
the cut, Rory.
I think these are what these guys shoot for. When you've reached his level, this is what it's about.
He's got 5 majors. Get to 6. Move your name up on the list.
Right, and they're aware. And golf does a great job of it's like baseball with the stats.
Yeah.
They know them. They're apparent.
Yeah, the number of back-to-back Masters champions who've gone back-to-back is very short. So get yourself on that list. Tiger and Jack.
Yeah.
All right, DJ and PK, we're taking a break. When we come back, your feedback, everything you have to say about this show coming up next. Stay with us. We have a golfer to give away right now. We need someone to qualify for our Copper Rock Masters Golf giveaway. It's time right now. Caller 12. Call 801-575-ZONE. You'll be assigned a player in the field at the Masters this week. If your golfer wins the Masters, you will win 18 holes for 2 at Copper Rock Golf Course in Hurricane and a $100 gas gift card. It's brought to you by Copper Rock, where the pros play. Question of the morning. Michigan wins the national championship, starting 5 transfers. Is this what we want for college basketball? Brent gives it a big old thumbs down. Derek says, why must we always ruin every good thing we have? Yeah, I don't feel like it's ruined, but sure, okay. U-State Iceman. Now, Jack, his Aggies have benefited from this. Guardrails. We need guardrails that make it so everyone is on the same footing. Not going to happen.
When has that ever happened in college sports?
It has never happened. There have always been teams willing to cheat. A few have been caught, and we know about them. There have been some spectacularly hilarious stories of stuff getting botched over time by people who were cheating and pretending like they weren't. And there's people who've largely gotten away with it. It's not like everybody who does 85 on I-15 south of Fillmore gets caught, right, PK?
Hey.
Sorry, too personal. I was talking about me.
Okay.
Jack says we need a cap like the NBA and no free will transferring. See, the thing is they like to – not that anyone buys it. They like to – the student athlete. Well, students can transfer anytime they want. Free will
Yeah, but
transfer.
students, if you want to graduate, can't transfer anytime they want.
It gets hard, doesn't it? What do you mean all those credits don't transfer?
I transferred and I lost some.
I bet, yeah.
Which I was glad to lose them because my GPA at NAU wasn't very good.
Let's pretend like that didn't happen.
It's much better at ASU.
Then we've got people talking about your Utah Jazz. We still have people weighing in on Ace Bailey. Could it be the number one option? And Courier Falcon says a lot depends on how Coach Hardy designs his plays and his rotations next season.
Yeah, I don't see it. I just don't see it by February.
I don't either.
He has to then be
sensational.
Hall of Fame caliber player. And the other guys have to bust, and they're too good to bust.
And is he going to be sensational that quickly?
Wow, if he is,
that's awesome. I'd like to see it. It would lead to a certain amount of chaos and passion that a radio show would thrive on. So let's do it.
Yeah.
But when Locke asked us on the air, I did think, like in 3 years. In 3 years, you get him to like 22, 23. The prime's 27. He's the guy. Yeah, I could see that.
I don't have any problem with that. I just think there has to be a natural progression. And that would be unnatural. It would be unnatural to the good and to the positive, but it would still be unnatural.
All right, DJ and PK. Anything else you want to tell the people, PK? Now that we live in the Big Ten era with the Michigan basketball title joining the UCLA women and Indiana football.
Oh, it's funny. I just saw a thing, Yak had brought up, and I'd seen the rankings that UCLA's ranked number 1 in baseball.
Yep.
And somebody put, if they had to go through what the Big 12 teams have to go through, there'd be no way they'd be number 1. So, and I'm not following Big Ten women's basketball, but I did follow the Bruins this year. So, they are claiming the conference of the old Bill Walton
Conference of Champions.
Yeah, and you got to give it to them. I mean, certainly the football and basketball, even the women, all three of them are legit. Even if it's funny to think that one is now a member of the Big Ten, but nevertheless they are playing a Big Ten schedule. A lot of their recruiting was based on Pac-12, but they won, and they won the women won in dominant fashion. And Michigan men, they had been dominant, but they were good enough to win, and that's really all that matters. And they got all these transfers, but as we reported out, the best player on this team, what's his name? The guy who had the injury. He went to junior college. He was at Arizona Western. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know he was at Arizona Western.
Yeah, he's a Jersey kid. Born in Puerto Rico, grew up a little bit in Jersey, found his way somehow out to Yuma, Arizona, of all things, and goes to UAB and then transfers over to Michigan. So that guy, it's kind of like a Lou Dort for Oklahoma City. I would guess that a lot of people had an opportunity to get him, but Oklahoma City saw enough to sign him, and now he's a starter on a team that has an excellent chance to repeat for winning the title for a second consecutive year. And obviously, I'm speaking of the Oklahoma City Thunder. So just because there's a transfer doesn't mean that it was a transfer in that everybody was bidding for him and they paid the top dollar to get him.
Right. It's not just an auction. You got to have an eye for talent, diamond in the rough, and figure out how someone fits in with your team.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
And who's about ready to take a leap forward? Who's about to make a big leap? Like, yeah, they weren't that good then, but they are that good now.
Sure.
Right. All right, DJ and PK, we're all done. Jake and Ben are next right here on The Zone.